listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. And I gotta tell you something, people. The gentleman on my show, I've been listening to him play the drums for a really long time. You know, when I was like 12 or 13, I got both Gimme Back My Bullets and Street Survivors off the Columbia House Record Club. And if you people don't remember that, we would get like 12 records for a penny, and then we never buy other records, and it never screwed up our credit. And he's here. He was with Lynyrd Skynyrd. His band, the Artimus Pyle album, just put Anthems comes out in February. Anthems, it's the honoring the music of Lynyrd Skynyrd. I listened to Simple Man that he did with Sammy Hagar, and it really kicked ass because I love that song. And my guest is Artimus Pyle. How you doing, Artimus?
Hey, Steve, and thank you for those words. Sammy did do a great job on Simple Man, and did you hear the cry in his voice? Yeah,
you know, it seems, because you know, that song, I'm going to tell you something about that song. Every once in a while on Facebook, I'll post, you know, man, I love that song. I drive, I love it. I love that effing song. And everyone always loves it too. And it does, though. It's an emotional song. It's one of those songs, it chokes you up a little bit. And he just really, he delivered.
Ronnie Van Zant wrote that song for his mother and his grandmother. And so, of course, you know, the song really hits home with all of us guys, you know, that love their mothers. And, you know, I did. So Sammy, to me, the cry I'm talking about in his voice, Elvis did it. Dolly Parton does it. There's a cry in the voice where their voice breaks a little bit. And you could hear that in Sammy's performance on Simple Man. Steve, the way I really felt like that he was singing it for Ronnie. You know, because when Sammy was in Ronnie Montrose, the band Montrose.
Right.
And he was in that band. And we toured. We did a lot of shows together. And so Sammy loved Ronnie. And then, you know, Sammy followed the Yellow Brick Road and to fame and fortune in his own right. And I just really feel like it. I did this album, you know, my band and I, APB, we wanted to do something that was a tribute. And I think the way Sammy presented it and sang it, I think it's truly from the heart a sincere tribute to Ronnie.
Now, when you started recording this album, when you decided, well, why did you decide now? What made you record it now? Because it's been a long time. I know it's you know, the anniversary of the plane crash and all that, but what made you sit there and go, now is the time?
Because Ronnie deserves it. And, you know, the original kind of name of our album, a working title, was Honoring the Music of Ronnie Van Zant. And Judy Van Zant, Ronnie's widow, had given us permission to use that. Honoring the Music of Ronnie Van Zant, his band, and you know, that was the working title. I like Anthems. That was the management company and record company threw that, you know, out there, and we like it because Ronnie didn't just write hit songs, hit albums. He wrote anthems that'll be here 1,000 years from now. So that's what we wanted to call the record. And, you know, why now would we record a bunch of Lynyrd Skynyrd songs? Well, first of all, as I said, Ronnie deserves it. And secondly, we had all of these incredible artists that were willing to sing on the record. I mean, Dolly Parton was the first one that recorded Freebird with us, an arrangement we came up with her producer, Kent Wells. And it was such a beautiful arrangement. And when Dolly played it for me, I sat there next to her at the console in Nashville, where she likes to record at Kent Wells' place, and I cried like a baby. I mean, I literally, the tears flowed because her voice, her gigantic little voice, her little gigantic voice, singing those words that Ronnie wrote, if I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? And this is before that we lost Gary Rossington. And, Gary, about 7 months ago, passed away. He was 71 years old. My guitar players, Jerry Lida and Scott Rains, we went down to the service. So I felt like, and the band felt like, and everybody involved was kind of excited about putting modern technology, modern recording techniques, and really kind of shining up the songs. Because, Steve, nobody's going to record these songs and they're going to be better than the original. Nobody's going to sing these songs and it's going to be better than Ronnie. Except maybe Dolly. No, Ronnie would agree with that. But no, the original recordings stand forever. But we wanted to put the modern technology, a Nashville sound, which I get the best drum sound I've ever gotten in my life. My drum sound in this album is fat. And Kent Wells and the mastering processes in Nashville, which, production in Nashville is second to none. And the mastering process, sonically, the album sounds fantastic. And then every performance, you have Dolly, you have Warren Haynes, from Government Mule and Allman Brothers. You have a young girl, 33 years old, from Canada named Lindsay L. She played a guitar solo on Needle in the Spoon and sang it. So you throw in answer to your question, you throw in all these great vocal performances. You throw it in considering that we're doing it as a tribute. And yes, tributes have been done before, but I think this is the greatest tribute album, one of them ever done. And you throw in the fact that we didn't do this album to make a bunch of money. The lion's share, as you well know, you're in the business, the lion's share of this album is going to go to the children and the grandchildren of my friends that are up in rock and roll heaven, in the parallel universe on the biggest stage in the world, looking down saying, hey, Artimus, you better get somebody good to sing Freebird. Well, how about Dolly Parton? So, those are all the reasons. Ronnie deserved it. I'm 75 years old, so, I want to do it while I'm still able to do it and do it well. I'm 75, but I play drums like I'm 25. And my band has been together 15 years. And right, Steve? We've been together 15 years. We've been playing these songs all over the country. And we're really good. We play Lynyrd Skynyrd songs and music better than anybody in the world. And I drive it like it's supposed to be driven, the correct way. And so that all summed up to we could do a really good album. Dolly agreed to do it with us, Sammy Hagar, all of our great guest artists. And it was not easy navigating the shenanigans of Nashville, Tennessee. But I can tell you that it was worth it because it got Gary Rossington. We lost Gary, but we got his slide solo on Freebird, our recording, my band, Jerry Lida, Scott Rains, Brad Durden, David Fowler, and myself, Artimus Gomer Pyle, USMC. We got everybody, together, went up and recorded all the basic tracks. And then we brought in everybody. So it wasn't easy getting all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, as you can imagine. But it was worth it because it brought Gary and I back together where we texted back and forth and as old friends, because for years we had been kept separated because all of the different management companies and lawyers, there was more money for them to steal if Gary and I were not together. And now that Gary is gone, I am the last living member of Lynyrd Skynyrd. It is not a good feeling. It is a bad feeling, but it is a fact, and I'm not going to change what I do. My band and I are going to continue to get on the bus, go to the gigs. We played 4 shows in Florida a couple of weeks ago with the Outlaws. We're always up north. Our agency is out of New Jersey. We have a guy. The agencies in Nashville are just they at least when they deal with me, they schmooze me and lie to me and tell me they're going to do this and that, and they don't do anything. But our agency, Blue Raven, out of New Jersey, they stand up for me. They stand up for the band, and they get us in all these beautiful old theaters all over the country that have been restored. So, getting Gary and I back together, and us 2 old friends texting and saying, "Hey, I love you, buddy," before his death means the world to me. And I got Gary on Freebird with Dolly, and it was not an easy task. So
I want to ask you, you said your drum sound is bigger, but when it's a different arrangement, how do you acclimate as a drummer? Because you're used to playing those Freebird songs. You're used to playing, the way it goes. But when you have a different singer and a different tune, how did you focus and say, this is how it should be played? Was it just instinctual, or did you sit there and have to think it out and go, okay, I'm going to change my drumming a little? Because the songs are going to sound a little bit different, as you said, with different people.
Well, we did write with Kent Wells a really nice arrangement for Dolly on Freebird that kind of made it her own. She always kind of makes it her own anyway. But the rest of the songs, we held true to the arrangements that we've been playing for years. And I take artistic license by playing those drum parts. Some night I may feel like throwing a little extra something in because I'd get bored playing everything like a robot every night the same exact way, but I never vary from the spirit or the feel of the song. But to go deep into your question, I didn't have to think about the vocalists when I was recording these songs because my band and I cut the tracks without vocals. We just played the instrumental thing, and if I needed, because I cue off the vocals, if I needed a vocal in there, a scratch vocal, as we say in the business, then I have 3 singers in APB that hold their own with any vocalist. They're all 3 really great singers. Brad is our keyboard player and sings lead, and Jerry sings backup vocal and lead on some songs with Scott. And Scott Rains has an incredible voice, is an incredible guitar player. So, and they're from Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina. We got Tennessee, Kentucky represented in this band. We are a Southern rock band. And they have Southern rock voices and Southern vocals. They're not trying to fake it. They're not using one of these fake Southern rock voices. It's their voices. And I don't require anybody in our band to try to sound like Ronnie. I don't require anybody in the band to dress up like my band members that are up in rock and roll heaven. We stand there and play the songs. There's not a circus act going on. We play the music and we sing the vocals. And, that is the show, not a bunch of, running around and, waving at the crowd and acting, showing our ass to the crowd. We present them. People love the way we play the music and the way we present it. We play for 40,000 people on festivals with people like the late Charlie Daniels and the Outlaws, Southern rock bands, Marshall Tucker. And the crowd always comes forward on us, fist bumping and singing the words more than any other band. And that's because of the prolific writing of Ronnie Van Zant and the strength of that music and those songs and those words. You know, people at these big festivals can see that we're not Lynyrd Skynyrd. We would never say we're Lynyrd Skynyrd, but we play the music closer to the way it should be played, with honor, respect, and accuracy every night. So, you know, I hope I answered your question. I didn't have to adjust anything I did because the vocals were not there, and our vocalists are so good that if we needed a scratch vocal, we just throw that in for timing, you know, so that we'd be completely on time. Because I cue, back in the days, even playing in front of 300,000 people or 200,000 or 100,000 at festivals, I had Ronnie hot in my mix, you know, because if I was playing, I'm the drummer, I'm at one end of the spectrum, Ronnie's at the other end of the spectrum. If Ronnie and I are in sync, everything in between will fall in line. And so I cue off the vocals, and it also inspires me as I'm playing the songs, because I'm thinking of the stories that Ronnie was telling about these songs. And when Steve Gaines came into the band, and the two of them, I mean, Steve Gaines and Ronnie Van Zant were so good together as singing duets. There would have been so many more duets between them, but the one that we've got that we cherish, because Ronnie was killed and Steve was killed, is You Got That Right. You know, you got that right. You won't find me in an old folks home. You know, I'm on the road. That's what they were thinking about, and singing. So, you know, as I'm playing the songs, and I play them all the time, we're on the road all the time, and I play these songs every night that we play them, I live through the songs. I think about my friends. I look out and see my band that's been there for 15 years, and I'm proud of them. We played the Grand Ole Opry on October 20th, this last October 20th, which was the Grand Ole Opry at Opryland. We played 2 songs, and we came in from San Antonio, Texas, playing for the veterans, raising money for veterans, and they invited us to debut at the Grand Ole Opry, and they treated us so well. It was such an incredible experience, and I couldn't help but be emotional and think about my friends, thinking, hey, we've got this new album. We dropped Sweet Home Alabama that day in Nashville there. Everybody reacted. Ronnie Dunn from Brooks and Dunn, he sings it, and we got all kinds of great feedback. You know, I've done interviews in Athens, Greece recently, last few days, Sydney, Australia, the UK, Edinburgh, Scotland, Montreal, Canada, all over the US. And the fact is that everybody, the popular consensus is that it's a beautiful album. It's a strong album. It's a tribute album, and it's special. And everybody seems to really like it. So I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about my friends. I'm thinking, hey, here we are at the Grand Ole Opry, you know, on the day that we crashed our airplane 46 years later. And I was, you know, hoping that they were proud of me and the band. Gary Rossington, the last text he sent me was, I love you, man. I love your family. I miss you. Because we'd been kept apart for years, you know, for the greed factor of the managers and lawyers. And so, you know, he said, I know that Ronnie would love this album. He would love Freebird. He would love the way Dolly did it. I know the whole band would. He even went a little further, which was unusual for Gary, to say that when it gives him kind of goosebumps to listen to it. And he said it's very emotional. I mean, Gary kind of waxed poetic on me on that last text, which I will cherish forever, because, and I've got it in my phone right now, you know, where Gary texted me that, and that was the last thing we, you know, he was thanking me for hooking up with Dolly and the Freebird. And so I know that Gary was proud. I, you know, heard it from him that, you know, that he feels like everybody else would be proud of this effort that we've made to kind of put a little shine with modern technology on the songs, bring in all these great artists, and And, the money, as I said, the money for these songs are going to go to the children and grandchildren. So it's a win-win-win situation. And I love Dolly Parton. She is a humanitarian. She's number one in the world as far as I'm concerned. Everything she does for children and the book programs that she does, always giving millions of dollars to children's hospitals all over the country and the world. She is a humanitarian, and we are so lucky to be included in her new album, and she's on our new album. So, we couldn't be happier.
Now, we're talking about Lynyrd Skynyrd, and Lynyrd Skynyrd for me, I just turned 60, and we listened to Lynyrd Skynyrd. I mean, we listened to it. It was just great. Kids from New Jersey, because Southern rock was so big back then, man. You were like the Outlaws and Molly Hatchet. And how did you end up in Lynyrd Skynyrd? Because I know you were in Vietnam, right? Like you were a veteran. How did you end up in Lynyrd Skynyrd?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say I love New Jersey. Our agency is there, Blue Raven, and I have a lot of friends in Kearney, over there, all over New Jersey. We have fans and people that come to our shows. I love being up in New Jersey, playing those old theaters that have been restored. I did not go to Vietnam. I had orders to go to Vietnam in my hand, and I was ready. I had trained every possible training class that you could take. I was prepared, to go to Vietnam. I didn't want to kill anybody. I didn't want to be killed. But I'm a Marine, and they taught me how to kill people. And I didn't want to do that. But I was ready to go. And then my father was killed in a mid-air plane collision in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And my orders were, as a sole surviving son situation, I was going to go to OCS and fly jets for the Marines. That was my father and my dream. He had soloed. He had taken a plane up, soloed. I was about to solo. When he was hit from above and behind by a B-57 weather reconnaissance bomber in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He never knew what hit him. He felt no pain. He was an architect. He was flying over property he was going to build on for a builder, a developer, and Dad never knew what hit him. That kind of kept me from going crazy. So that was the dream with my dad and I. So after Dad was killed, I went from being a Marine captain, pilot, and to a drummer in a Southern rock band called Lynyrd Skynyrd. So after Dad was killed, I immediately put a bunch of bands together. I went up to Martha's Vineyard and spent the summer there with my band Next Voice. I went back to the Carolinas. I hung out with Toy Caldwell and Tommy Caldwell and Paul Riddle and George McCorkle from Marshall Tucker Band. And they kept telling me about this band that they knew about called Lynyrd Skynyrd that needed a drummer. And I was like, well, do they work hard? That's what I want to do. I want to get in a band that works hard. And then Charlie Daniels auditioned me for his band. And at the last minute, the drummer that was going to quit, Charlie had two drummers. And at the last minute, Charlie's drummer that was going to quit, his name was Hoff Allen. And he rethought it and realized that he had a good job with Charlie. And so I went to New Orleans to meet up with Charlie and kind of audition. I jammed with Charlie, but he took me aside and he said, Artimus, the drummer that was going to quit decided not to, and I can't really take time out if I don't have to. I'm right in the middle of, touring my album, and I've got a hit song on the radio, and I hope you understand. And I said, Charlie, of course. I said, thank you for being honest with me. I mean, that was one of my first experiences in the Southern rock world because And Charlie, instead of like schmoozing me or, telling me some other big fib, Charlie was honest with me and just said, look, this guy he's not going to quit, so I don't have a slot for you. But he did say, I know this band that's looking for a drummer, because Bob Burns, the original drummer, a good friend of mine, I love Bob. He was in APB. He was in my band now. This has been together 15 years. He loved the band. Bob loved us and loved the way they play the music. And the crowd loved seeing Bob and I play together. But Charlie, again, says, hey, I know this band called Lynyrd Skynyrd. So Marshall Tucker and Charlie are both telling me about this band, Lynyrd Skynyrd. And they hooked me up with Ronnie. And Ronnie called me and said that he was going to fly 5 drummers and 5 sets of drums down to Florida, and we were going to have a drum off. And I said, wow, man, I said, that sounds like fun, and it does. I love playing with other drummers, and I have 8 children and grandchildren, and we all play drums together, and music. We play music. They all play different instruments. But I started them all off on drums because you got to learn time. And my youngest son, River, up at App State, he graduated. He plays trombone. So, it's like I said, okay, Ronnie, that sounds cool. He called me back 3 days later, and he said, hey, Artimus, we're not going to do the 5 drummer thing. We're going to fly, we're going to fly you down. And I said, no. I said, let me drive my Volkswagen microbus. I'll bring my own drums. And so I drove to Florida and stayed in Orange Park outside of Jacksonville there for a few days on the weekend. I thought they were never going to call me. And I thought maybe they'd changed their mind or something. I was in a nice Holiday Inn hotel room for 3 days. Finally, on Monday, they called me and said, we're picking you up in 20 minutes. And we went out to Green Cove Springs to the farm out there where the you've heard of the Hell House?
Yeah.
And and I told him, I said, man, don't spend money on a hotel room for me. I'll stay out here at the Hell House, because it was surrounded by horses, and there was cattle. And I've been riding horses. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, raised in Tennessee. I love horses. I said, let me just stay out here with the equipment. And they couldn't believe I wanted to do that. And so I just moved in to the Hell House. And, as they say, the rest is history. And we went on to do our albums and continually tour America, Japan, Europe. And when we weren't touring, we were in the studio. It was the hardest working band I've ever seen in my life.
Well,
and that answered my question: do they work hard? So, my friends in Marshall Tucker and Charlie Daniels steered me toward Ronnie and the band, and it was Ronnie that hired me. It was Ronnie that said, "I like you, Artimus. You look like you're crazy enough to be in my band, and also it seems as though you can play drums." So. My first song was Saturday Night Special for that Burt Reynolds movie, and that was the first song on Nuthin Fancy. And and we went on to, and Steve, there would have been so many more albums. Ronnie and Steve would have collaborated. Ronnie would have collaborated with other artists and everything, but he would have always kept his bread and butter, and that's Lynyrd Skynyrd. Ronnie was a smart man. And he knew what side, his bread was buttered on. And he would have kept the band intact in perpetuity, a lifetime. But he didn't get a chance to collaborate as much. Neil Young had written songs that he wanted to come and record with Ronnie. But Ronnie was killed, and that ended that. So... I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, here's a question. I don't know if you're going to remember the show, but I remember this. There's a myth, or you might tell it's true. I remember Skynyrd played JFK in Philadelphia, and you opened for Peter Frampton. And the next day, all the talk was, you guys blew Peter Frampton off the stage. I don't know if you remember that show, but that's something that we still talk about. You know, our older brothers were there. But do you remember playing in JFK? I mean, what made you guys, and what made you guys so good live?
Well, we were so good because Ronnie Van Zant made the band rehearse, for hours and hours, going over one song 50 times. I mean, literally, so that we didn't have to worry about what was coming next, only how hard we wanted to nail it. And, of course, I remember that show. That was Peter Frampton, Jay Giles, us, and that was a series of shows. And Peter Frampton was very sad that day. I would jam with them at sound check. I had my congas. I always kept my congas, which were gonbops that I got in San Francisco. Steamed beechwood, beautifully built. And I would set my congas up and jam with opening bands like Carlos Santana. You know, I used to jam with him. He jammed with us on my congas in Flint, Michigan at an outdoor show. I turned around. We were doing Gimme 3 Steps, and I heard conga. And I turned around, and it was Carlos Santana playing conga. And I said, whoa. And but I'd always set my conga up, and I played with Charlie Daniels. I'd play his whole set. My hands, I had Band-Aids on my hands and bloody hands. Ronnie would make me show my hands to people and say, that's what your drummer's hands should look like. Bloody pulp, you know. But that was an incredible show. And the reason I remember the JFK show and an RFK show as well in Philly, and the JFK
was in Philly, RFK was in Washington.
RFK. And you're talking about the JFK
in Philly
stadium where in
Philly,
New York.
No, JFK's in Philly. RFK was in Washington D.C.
Okay, we played both of those, and so Jay Giles was on, but on one of them, Aerosmith was on the bill, and I remember Aerosmith's their management company kicked me off stage because Peter had just won a lot of awards, cutest blonde-haired guy in the Western Hemisphere, some bullshit, and he had won all these awards. So his manager at the time was like somebody from the freaking Sopranos, and which I love the Sopranos. I just watched a whole bunch of it on HBO. I got hooked again, and but Peter's manager was very sinister guy, and when, of course, Peter, those managers, they like to make their artists feel like they're number one, and and then they treat everybody else around them very badly. Because Ronnie Van Zant could be considered a rock star, but he never acted like one. He didn't act like a pompous little prima donna. But for a while, Peter had the pompous prima donna. He had it pegged. I love Peter. I loved his playing with him. He was humble pie. He's a great person. He's an amazing artist, and I love Peter. But for a while, because of all the attention, all these butt kissers and brown nosers, they have a way of making someone feel like, oh, I must be better than everybody else. But he snapped out of it. But I remember that day I was standing on stage waiting for them to play, and the management company came over and said, you can't be here. And I said, well, we just played. I'm the drummer of Lynyrd Skynyrd, and the guy goes, that was a very nice set you did. Very impressive. You'll have to get off stage now, because our rock and roll star is about to come up here. And it's like, I was like, oh, okay, all right, but don't put your hands on me, asshole, I did say that. And the guy said, So yeah, that was a great day, man. Peter Frampton.
Now, what was the partying like back then? Because I interviewed Billy Crane last week, and he told me some crazy shit. But what was like? What was it like when you guys started out? Were you hard partiers? Because I know eventually you stopped partying because I believe Ronnie didn't want you guys to. But what was it like? Was it true rock and roll? Because you always think Southern rockers, they know how to party. They got it going on.
Look, the band drank too much and did too many drugs. But that's what was going on in the 60s and 70s. It was everywhere. Cocaine and pills, uppers, downers. I'm a pothead. I'm a hippie pothead guy. I used to have really long hair. I still have some hair, but I'm 75 years old. So, but there was so much stuff available, and I don't think anybody would disagree, that drinking and drugs to a point, to a limit, if you limit, but back in those days, and myself too, would go overboard, and I watched the guys. They were heavy drinkers. Now, I wasn't there from the beginning. That was Bob Burns,
right.
Robert Burns. I was still a sergeant in the Marine Corps, honestly getting ready to go to Vietnam. And then Dad was killed, and I was almost, my 4 years, I was in for almost 4 years when Dad was killed. And I was going to ship over and go to OCS and fly jets. So, when these guys were doing their thing, when Ronnie and the guys were down in Florida, they didn't know I was alive. Although I went to Jacksonville, Florida a couple of times for schools. I worked on aviation electronics, and it was all analog, not digital then, but I had to go to school for top secret stuff. I have a crypto access top secret code for what I did and what I worked on. It's called, the top thing you can have is a crypto access. And I had that. And they would put us inside vaults that had time locks on it to school us on all of these top secret projects. And so I would go to Naval Air Station Jax NAS in Jacksonville there and go to that stuff. But so I wasn't there in the beginning, but what the guys all told me, I heard all the stories, and I had a lot of stories with them as well. We toured the world together. I was with the band for over 3 years before the plane crash. And, I heard all the stories. And the thing is, when they opened up for The Who, and that was Bob Burns, and, again, I say I love Bob. Bob never got enough credit. Bob is an amazing drummer. I always introduced him as the Ringo Starr of Southern rock drummers because I love the Beatles. I got to meet Paul McCartney in England, hang out with him, Jack Nicholson at that gig, Nebworth. But I don't think Ringo Starr ever got credit for being the genius drummer that he is, and just a great person. And and Dolly did a song on her new album, which our song is on, from Anthems. She did a song with Paul McCartney and Ringo. So, those were incredible gigs. But Ronnie, he ruled the band with an iron fist because he had an iron fist, and he had a different relationship with the rest of the band members. I'm the same age approximately as Ronnie. His birthday was January 15th, just a couple days ago, Martin Luther King's birthday. Ronnie is around 6 months older than I, but we were about the same age, and both of us being much older than the rest of the band, by years. And Ronnie, because I'm a Marine, And I had no reason to fear Ronnie, and he could not whip my ass. We had a different relationship than he did with the rest of the band members. They were like his children, because none of the guys, Gary, Alan, Leon, Billy, growing up, they didn't have real strong father figures that were there for them. And Ronnie would kind of fill that bill. Well, I had a father, an incredible father. And so Ronnie, to me, you know, I would go to the defense of the rest of the band members when the drinking got out of hand. So to me, you're asking the wrong guy, because, you know, a lot of the drinking really had consequences. And I was there, and I saw it. And I saw the arrest, the police coming, people, blood, blood, police. I saw that side of it, and had to get in between the band members sometime. Ronnie, you know, would get mad at Alan or someone for something that wasn't, and of course the drinking amplified everything that was going on. So they were hard partiers. I'll tell you right now, Steve, what they did would have killed me. And, you know, they started because they opened up for The Who on like a dozen shows. And every night, the promoters would provide cases of beer and bottles of whiskey and cartons of cigarettes. And these are poor, you know, not from wealthy families, but from middle-class, hardworking, blue-collar families from the west side of Jacksonville, Florida. So when these promoters offered all these free beer and free whiskey and free cigarettes and all this stuff, they just thought, wow, we got to drink it all and smoke it all, you know? And they, in a way that endeared them to me, that they were so thankful to have gigs. That's when I finally felt like I was a part of the band, because I would always say, you guys are really good. And Ronnie would say, what do you mean, you guys? He said, you're one of us. And it was a while before I would commit to being one of them. And now I look back, and I am so proud of everybody in that band. They were characters, man. Being on the road with Lynyrd Skynyrd was so much fun. Yes, there were the dark moments. But there were a lot more incredible moments on stage in front of these gigantic tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and what went along with that, and the feeling you get for making that many people rock out, you know, and me being a part of that, I am so proud to have been included. And as I say, I'm the last living member of the band, and I think about them all the time. I think about...
Now we got to wrap up soon, because I know you have another interview coming. But I want to ask you, because you play with them along, you know, they're part of your life. What, and I know it's going to be a hard question, but what was your favorite song to play with them? Did you have a favorite Lynyrd Skynyrd when you heard them go, you saw the set list, you went, holy crap, I'm going to play the shit out of this? Was there a song that was your favorite?
Yeah, I had songs in the set list that I liked more than others, but as you understand, Steve, now as I look back, they're all sentimentally my favorites. But I loved Freebird because it was a physical challenge to play that song. I loved I Ain't the One because it was such a cool piece that Bob wrote. And I did the best I could do to play it the way that Bob played, you know, but yet play it, put my feeling in there. And then Saturday Night Special. I love that song. Al Cooper produced it. It was the day that I signed the wrongful death papers to my father's death. I flew to Columbus, Ohio that morning, and signed the papers to my dad's wrongful death in that plane crash in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Then I flew back to Atlanta. I put the last dollar I had in my pocket because I gave my mom all the money from Dad's estate, and I left town with $1 in my pocket. Had to jump the curb at the Atlanta airport to go to the studio because I didn't have $6. And I had $1, and I put it in the gas tank of my Volkswagen microbus. And I went to, Studio One in Doraville, Georgia, on the outskirts of Atlanta, and I recorded Saturday Night Special. And I was crying. And Al Cooper came out, and he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I signed the papers to my father's wrongful death today. He was killed in a plane crash. I'm just upset." And Al Cooper said to me, he said, "Man," he said, "I don't want to be insensitive, but use it. Use your emotion." And that's the first song I played with Skynyrd. And you listen to Saturday Night Special, you'll hear I am playing that song ferociously. And I play it to this day ferociously. So every time I play that song, I think about my father and the dream that we had of me being a Marine Corps pilot. And I flew those jets. I flew our TA-4Fs, the trainers. And I had everything it took to be a pilot. I could take over 7 Gs. I didn't throw up, when I was up in the plane, like a lot of guys did. I had everything it took. So each song has a story to me. And that's a song that I recorded, that I wrote the part to. It wasn't Bob's song. But I try to respect Bob Burns' songs. And I love playing them all. One of my favorites that I love is Coming Home. It's such a beautiful song. And I play it delicately. And Bob played it originally. And then when I come into the "I want to come home," it goes into that chorus. That's when I lay the coal to it. I lay the fire to it. And every song in Lynyrd Skynyrd is different. There's no 2 Lynyrd Skynyrd songs where the drummer just plays 2 and 4.
Exactly.
Blip, blip, blop, blue. So every song is a challenge. I know a little. Think about that song. Steve Gaines wrote that tune. And it's real up-tempo boogie, and which I get from my listening to the big band, Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, Jimmy Dorsey, Gene Krupa back in those days, the big band stuff. That's what I brought into Skynyrd, and all of the drumming techniques that I've stolen from every other drummer. Guys come up to me all the time and go, "You influenced me as a drummer." And I said, "Well, look, every lick I've got, I stole from somebody else, or it's a variation on a theme." So the answer to your question is, I did have favorites: Saturday Night Special, Freebird, I know I Ain't the One, which are cool, but all of them are fun to play and execute in front of other bands and other drummers, because they're like, "Man, that one song you did, man, that was cool. I didn't expect that." Because it's a lot deeper than just 2 and 4. So I hope I answered your question.
You did, man. And, I want to thank you for coming on today, Artimus. People, go to artemispyleband.com. The album is really good. It's coming out. They have a bunch of different, you can get a drum head. Just go to artemispyle.com. And go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 990 episodes. You can email me at coopertalk.net. Twitter, I'm at coopertalk. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.